they just dump it right here in the rain. What? How did you get out? Okay, well, at least that's covered. Look at this thing, brand new. Kind of. Hey, and welcome back to the channel. So in the previous video I had purchased this skid steer for $4,500 and it's actually in pretty good condition. Unfortunately the engine was seized in it. So in this video the goal is to swap in this engine. This is a Yanmar 3.3 liter 4-cylinder diesel. I did not pick this engine randomly. I spent a lot of time with a tape measure measuring a bunch of different engines, and this is the one I think is going to be the easiest to swap in. There was quite a few other options actually. There was a Perkins, Kubota, Cummins, or a Isuzu. Later on in the video I'll cover why I chose this one over the other options, as well as why I'm not having the old original block repaired. I know a lot of people were asking about that. But for right now, let's look at this engine, see if I got ripped off or not, see if it fires up. I did purchase it from a somewhat reputable engine shop, so we'll see how this goes. This was a pretty low hour engine, a few hundred hours. And so hopefully it's been sitting for a while, I think. He did put a cover over the intake before shipping it, but in the original picture where it was for sale, this was uncovered, so I'm gonna go ahead and scope down here, make sure there's no like mouse nests or... Okay, it looks clear. There is some, not sure if that's moisture or what, but I think that's okay. So just give it a little check over here. Looking a little over full on the oil. Looks really clean in there, that's good. I guess the first question is, does it turn over? I mean, it should. Like I said, this was a good engine shop or a reseller. Kind of turning over pretty easy. I mean, there's not like a lot of compression. I feel like it should be better than that. All right, well, let's do a compression test, I guess. Just make sure it's not going to hit that when I spin it over here. All right, this looks like a pretty simple starter. I don't know if jumper cable should do it because there's no compression except on one cylinder. Okay, that's the... That'll work. Nice. All right. Let's see what gives out first, the starter or... Okay, I need to do some better wiring real quick. This should be better now, let's see. Still some electrical issues here. We're at about what, 350, 375? Let me tighten this up a little bit more. Try this again. Okay, 375. That's not good. Is that tight all the way? That is tight, and it is not making compression. That's like 100. That's really bad. Uh-oh. Let's try number 3. Thought something felt weird when I was turning it over. That one's 0. Is there stuff coming out? Oh, I can like hold it in with my finger. That's how little compression there is on there. What about this one? Not good. Let's try number 4. Oh man. What in the world? Did I really get good compression on the first? It's only number 1? Oh man, this engine is toast. Let's check the oil filter. This thing was sold to me as a good running engine, so I'm gonna have to get in touch with them and see what they want to do. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's no, it's not ideal. Just look and see what we got here. I mean, it's like peanut butter, and then it's basically empty in there. Not a good sign. Not pumping oil, but you know, don't panic yet. I'm sure maybe I'm missing something. Probably not. Okay, well, I called the shop I bought this from, and because I wanted to see if I should continue taking it apart or what he wanted to do. He said it's fine, just take it apart, and he'll make it right, whatever the problem is. He was really sure this engine was a runner. I just, you know, don't really believe that. But hopefully it's just maybe a valve issue or a head gasket problem. Let's see if these valves are stuck. That goop coming out of the oil system, I guess it's possible the pistons are all gummed up or something. I could kind of see down the glow plug hole with the bore scope. Like I can't go all the way in, but it looks like the pistons, especially like these 2 back ones, were just covered in goop. All right, let's get to it. I was gonna have to take this exhaust manifold off anyways because I want to flip it upside down so it looks like the stock exhaust on the other engine. Nothing's frozen. Things are looking up. Oh boy. That doesn't look good. Cap on that. Do these just sit on there? Yeah. I've seen a lot of this white and grayish goop paste. I can take this off without removing the pulley. Get that one. Just an O-ring, or what is this? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, there's no oil in the coolant. There is, however, coolant on my floor. Should also have seen some oil spurting out of there when I was turning it over. It's a little bit concerning. Just gonna throw this back. Oh my gosh. Let's pretend we didn't see that for now. diesel on that one. Oh, that'll help wash the coolant away on the floor. I think we'll just leave the injectors in the head for now. I really just want to get this pulled apart to find out what exactly the problem is so I can resolve, like monetarily, whatever needs to happen or figure out a plan. Those clips are no good. Ow. Everything's 12 millimeter on here. This is great. Some goop in here. It just looks like sticks or something blew in there. I should have taken this off to begin with. I mean, of course there's going to be junk on there. It was sitting with no top on it. All right, head is all ready to come off. Oh, can I get in there? See if I can do this without knocking the engine over. Back here. That was on there. The head gasket, I mean, it kind of fell apart on me. A bunch of areas like this where it's just clogged up completely. What is it? Is this just rust? Yeah, you know, it's not the cleanest. Is this? Here. It's a hole. I mean, yeah, there's like no movement there. That's all side to side movement. Hey guys, sorry to do this. This is Matt from the future, and you can see things have slightly escalated since a second ago, and we'll get back to that, don't worry. But I realized I lost some footage that's pretty important because it kind of explains what's going on. So I think it cut out where I was kind of wiggling these pistons around. And let's get in here and I'll show you what's going on. So I thought it was just carbon at the top of the cylinder here, but I cleaned it off. These cylinders are completely wiped out. There's a huge ridge right there. So I just measured it by sticking like a straight edge here. This is not really accurate. Where it's hanging down over this ridge. And I could get over 0.3 millimeters under here. So, I mean, that's on both sides. So that's a huge amount missing out of the cylinder. Number 4 is the worst. 2 and 3 are also bad. I mean, 1 also has a little bit of a ridge, not nearly as bad. It's probably, I mean, it's still bad, but it's not like as bad as, like it just you can feel a bump. Your fingernail doesn't get torn off if you push up against it. So I still actually do believe that the guy was able to get this thing started and it sounded okay. Just cranking it over with some combustion heat may have made those rings seal up a little bit more. So what can cause this much wear? I mean, I can make some guesses. It could just be an old engine, and we'll know once we get into the bearings, I mean, how old it is. It could be there could be a fueling issue with the injectors where it's washing down the cylinder and it's, you know, washing all the oil off and it's just wearing that out really quickly. It could have been run for a very long time without like an air filter, and maybe that got in there. I mean, it is kind of interesting. The intake is over on this side, and the input is right by cylinder number 3, and 4, and those were like the worst, and then like 1's the best, and that's the furthest from the intake. There could also be an oiling issue. It was a little bit strange, you know, despite all the turning it over to check compression, no oil ever got pumped up into the head, and that oil filter just had a little bit of goo in it and was empty. So maybe something got plugged up, or there's just a bunch of goo in this thing and it's not oiling the cylinders properly. That's another option, I guess. I'm just guessing. I'm not really a mechanic. I don't know. But anyway, we'll never know until we keep tearing it all the way apart. So that's kind of where we're at. So I got to get this onto the engine stand. Unfortunately, there's no lifting hooks anymore, so I got to put the head back on. No fresh oil in this head. You should have seen something, I would think. So we don't need this Perkins anymore. Toss this in the scrap heap. We'll get into this more later, but I do have to replace this flywheel. I have one, actually I have the new one right here. This is the coupler for the pump, and it bolts up into here. This stuff is all standardized, like the flywheel housing and the flywheels. It's all standardized, so as long as the engine's about the right displacement, all this stuff is gonna line up with my pump. It's really, really simple. It's like the easiest part of doing the swap. There we go. Big spider in there. Nope. Oh, geez, there's bolts up here I missed. That feels better. Still some RTV. It's like it's hooked up on the... Is there a bolt in the bottom I'm missing? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. There's oil pan bolts. They go right into the bottom of the flywheel housing. I've never seen that before. All right. There we go. Come on now. There we go. That was difficult. You can see right into the crankcase. I do have a new oil pan gasket coming because I knew I was going to have to pull the oil pan to put that side drain on. There's no oil pan gasket on here, just RTVs. I'm guessing this has been off before. Not sure if you noticed, but also this galley plug is leaking. There we go. This is working great. A clean bucket. Not going to flip it because any junk that's in there will end up falling back into crankcase, although at this point it probably doesn't matter too much. Man, a couple of these are on here really tight. Oh man, that's gonna strip. There we go. Here we go. No sludge or junk in there. Well, it's looking like a clean little engine so far. So I wonder, maybe we should take the pickup off and see if it's clogged up. But there should have been oil in here after cranking it. Oh, jeez. Is that an O-ring? O-ring on there. So let's see what's in this pickup here. Seems like there's some thick stuff in it. There it goes. I've cleared off a table here dedicated to this engine because things are about to get a little more serious. I guess the fact that it has 3 screws in here, it probably needs to be pulled off. Don't want to go too hard, I'm going to break the pulley otherwise. Let's just see if it budges. I don't like that. The threads in here look like they're pretty much gone. But we'll see if we can bring them back. I think they're M10 by 1.5. No way to know for sure. Yeah, it's going in clear. This is just a steering wheel puller. I think it's upside down. No. The sealing surface is not worn on here, so that's a strike against it being a really old engine. It's a lot better than the Isuzu was at 9,000 hours or whatever. Is this a separate plate? Yep. RTV on there. Be a fun guessing game to remember which one goes where. This thing has also been RTV'd. Looks like we got some pry spots. There we go. Jeez. Come on. There we go. All right, what's going on with the timing situation here? So I see a mark here, a mark there. That oil pump don't care. Right there, C, B, that's an A. Okay. Now we're off, which means They're gonna have to go around again. I just want to see it all lined up before I take it apart. There we go. So I see a B to B, C to C, A to A. What is this? It's RTV? Are we gonna find like a bunch of RTV in the oil passages? Is that what this is gonna be? It's gonna come off. An oil pump. It's dry inside. Like no oil's been in the passage. There's a little piece of RTV right there inside of the oil pump, and it's dry in here. Like it hasn't pumped anything for a while. So you're going to want to come off this pulley. You have to pull that off too. I left the nut on the pulley there. It kind of worked its way off. There we go. Ooh. There we go. Right size. That's an oiling groove, don't worry. These look pretty. I mean, this looks decent. I'll have to measure it, but the bearing surfaces all look pretty good on here. Is that it? More RTV. Oh, that piston slid way down in there. I think I can just push this piston out with my hand. It's so loose. Get this bearing off. Yeah, as soon as it hits that ridge, of course, it's hard to move, but it slid. It basically just slid out by itself. No, rings are all there. They're all free. These bearings look, well, they look, I'll have to clean them up, but they look pretty new. They're just completely loose in here. Just easily slide it out by hand. Whoa! I guess it doesn't matter if these pistons hit. Every reman kit comes with new pistons, so. One was the best one, right? So this should be the hardest one to take out. So this is the one I just pulled out, number 1. The rings here are all sludged up and really dirty in this piston. Oil ring is stuck. These bearings look pretty new. These come out really easy. It's just popping right out. This is the thrust bearing. Easy. This crank is probably good. Okay. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I was looking through the service manual last night for this, and this is a 2004 model. It looks like things have changed kind of over the years, but for this particular vintage, it appears that Yanmar does not, I can't get that one out. Yanmar didn't use gaskets. They used, or they, at least in the service manual, it says to use silicone gasket maker for everything. So we might be, that might be what's going on here. Looks like some of the overhaul kits have come with gaskets though. And I know for a fact you can get the oil pan gasket because I have one coming. I would prefer to use real gaskets. I'm not a big fan of using RTV, especially on an engine. See, there's a camshaft bearing right here. There's no camshaft bearings here or in the back. It's just bored out in the block. So if you have a problem, I guess you just have to line bore the block and get replacement oversized bearings, I guess. Okay, what is all this white stuff? This came from the East Coast, so it's probably got all kinds of stuff. I don't even know what it is in it. The number on the block matches the number on the valve cover. That's probably a good sign. You're definitely going to want to take this plug out because this cooling system really needs a clean out. If I can get it. We'll come back to that. Just, oh. That must be the coolant plug. A lot of goo stuck in there. Hasn't been drained for a while, obviously. Is this some kind of wasp or something, or some kind of burrowing insect on the East Coast that does this? I'm out of my element here. This part just threads in. It looks like you might need a special wrench to get it. I don't want to mess around with it right now. I'll get this plug, which was leaking. Oh man, that's wanting to not come out. It's making me a little nervous. It's not something we want to break off in there. Yeah, I don't like that. No. We got here, got one there. And this one. Man, what is going on? All right, well, removing these plugs is a need, not a want, so. Ooh, it's gonna catch on fire. Let's try that. I really wish these were square head instead of hex, because hex, I feel like, always strips on me. Oh, that was easy. That's all there was to it. Put the one in the back. Nothing to it. Not sure if you can tell, but actually I do see a red tint there. So maybe they used a little bit of Loctite red to seal those in, which would explain why it came off so much easier with the heat. All right, that galley is completely clean. Can you see through there? I can. This one, something not good is going on here. Let's see what that is. This whole thing has got this slurry in here. It's just like tar. Can't quite tell where this goes. It goes that really far in the block. Oh, look at all that metal on there. So is that just metal paste that's coming out? Looks like it. All that gray stuff. That's what's left of the cylinders. Not ideal. Let's see what's in here. Oh, that comes out of the main. So there was a lot of junk probably getting in there. Okay, well, we got the torch out. Might as well see if we can get this last plug out. We have a fire starting inside the block. Oh yeah, that's what I figured. Let me see if I can get you a good idea of the ridge that's going on in there. Manual focus, there we go. Can you see that ridge? Get closer, look at that thing. This is the worst one, but it's not good. I think it was a light help. Number 3 is so big ridge. 2, 1 not as bad. It's got a ton of grease though on that. You see the side of the cylinder there? It's got a ton of just goo. It's on both sides. It's right there too. Just on one. All right, let's take a look at the pistons here. This is the number 1, which was the best. This ring looks a little bit worn. I don't see like the top or bottom mark or anything. It looks really small. Oh yeah, it's pretty worn. Okay, we'll look at that in a sec. There we go. That's gonna break, isn't it? Yep. There's no top or bottom mark on these. Did it just wear away? Just for reference, this is what like the ring on the Perkins. This is about the same size there. This top ring though, look at this. It's a bit worn out. This is all clogged up with gunk. There used to be holes there at some point. Yeah, what is this? Is this... I'm seeing a lot of what might be dirt and grime, which I guess that would kind of point to running with no air filter. Because this is all just gummed up with junk. I'm trying to improve the light down here because it's... Maybe it's just this black piston is not showing up very well on the camera, at least from the screen I see. Anyway, if you can see that... is that just dirt? You know... So really at this point, I mean, I just kind of gave the main bearings a quick glance, and they looked pretty new. So I was thinking maybe someone put new bearings in a really old engine. Let's see how this wrist pin looks. Now this thing's got a pretty good ridge in it. Yeah, it's a significant ridge there. But now it's looking, maybe it's just ran for a long time with no air filter or no filtration. Because it's like basically everything's pretty good except for the piston and rings. It could also be maybe a fueling issue, like the pump's messed up and it's just dumping fuel in all the cylinders, but now you think that the oil would smell like fuel more than it did. So let's see with this ring. Yeah, it's a really bad gap there. What is that, about 3 millimeter gap? This is the top ring. So the spec for the end gap is 0.25 to 0.45 millimeter. Down here where past the ridge is probably higher, right? All right, here's, this is 2. I cleaned this one off a little bit better. Take the wrist pin out first. It's starting to look like bad filtration. I mean, I've never seen it this even close to this bad before, but this is, I can't think of anything else that would make sense. This is stuck in here. Do see some grooves in here. Not sure if you can see that. Let's clean one of these up real good. I mean, these look really low hour. I mean, the 1,000 hour number that was quoted to me, this looks right. There's a lot of dirt in here though. I'm just seeing that for the first time. So that could be a sign of air filtration problems. Oh yeah, this one's even worse. A lot of scratches, a ton of dirt ran through here. But the actual wear, besides that though, the actual wear is really light. Like I would believe 1,000 hours, I think. How does this one compare to the other one? This one is noticeably thinner. Oh, I gotta check the gap on get this one off without breaking it. Come on, there we go. We'll check the gap on that one, because that one looks like it's not worn down. These are Yanmar pistons. I can see the marking in here. So these might be the original pistons. These bearings don't have like they don't have much on there. So that's all that's written on them. I'm not sure if that's a Yanmar bearing or not, but it's definitely a Yanmar piston. Okay, so here's the top ring. Oh, you can see the ridge. The light catches it. You can see that ridge around the outside where it's all worn out. Yeah, that's not good. What's this one look like? I mean, that's still horrible. All right, here's number 3. Pretty close to 2. This is a little bit more worn. Get your fingernail on that. Bearings are even a little bit dirtier. than 1. So it seems like the problem is going towards the back, which would kind of verify that I think I mentioned earlier that the intake is right kind of between, I think it's cylinders 3 and 4. So this is number 4, which is the worst one. So by far this wrist pin is way more worn. A lot of dirt through it. This piston I kind of cleaned off too. There's still a circlip in here. A little bit more dirt in these, I think. And then on this one also there's a hot spot from, looks like a little piece of metal. Little piece of metal was on the back side. So it wore that off. Happens sometimes, I guess. Oh, so the second ring broke off. It was stuck in there. Top ring on this one is by far the worst. Let me see if I can get this on. There is like just, you can just see how it's worn. If I can get that side profile of it, of this right here, you can see how that's worn. This is by far the worst ring. So this is 4 top ring on 4. Let me get my Yanmar gap measuring tool real quick. Yep, that's a little over 1/4 of an inch. Slightly out of spec. Okay, let's check out the mains. Yep. Not a lot of wear, but just a lot of dirt in there. I don't know if I can catch that. You can see, there's dirt. I can see the dirt at least. Same marking on those. I get this camera to focus. Top bearing. Yeah, a little bit dirtier on there. Some bigger stuff went through. Looks like metal almost. Okay. So these actually have a little bit more on them than I thought originally. So here's, this is the second one in. Yeah, it just looks like a bunch of dirt's been through here. I don't know what that brown stuff is, if that's whatever, but these, a lot of dirt went through here, or just metal, something. Now the top one, you can actually see, I didn't clean this one very well because you can actually see buildup. I think that's just dirt or something. It looks almost like rust, but I think that's dirt. Can I scrape it off? Yeah, I can kind of scrape it away a little bit, but that's not good. That's right in the oil passage. Next one out. We're getting closer to 4 as we go along here, but this one actually looks pretty decent. Well, except for all that stuff. That one was cleaner. This one's also fairly clean. I think 3, I'll have to check real quick, but I think the way this engine is oiled is, it was like this, it was right around here that the oil comes in right after the filter and then it disperses. So it probably makes sense that this would be the cleaner one. Yeah, that one's got some dirt through it. And then there's another spot there. Okay, well, pretty dirty. Okay, now onto the big ticket items here. Let's clean this up as gently as possible. Hopefully just gonna need a really nice polish, but let's see. All right, guys, well, for the most part, things are looking pretty decent. I mean, I think this stuff that we focused on there, we clean up with a polish. That would, I think. That one, there's really not much to see on these until you get to this one. Something bad happened to this guy right here. Yeah, here's the other side here. I'm not sure what that is, but I looked at it's that same bearing that I looked at before. So it's this same bearing that had this weird brown streak on it. And whatever that was got in there, and I mean, it didn't really tear it up, but I don't know if you can polish that away. Yeah, I can feel that, so This crankshaft's gonna have to be ground down, I think. All right, camshaft. So full disclosure, I measured like the first 3 lobes and they're all right in the middle of the spec. Just before I wasted any time with this thing, I just double checked that. So it's not worn, which is really good. And actually the journals all look really good, which is good because there's only one bearing in the block, right? Which is, you know, not the best, but actually while I'm thinking about it, we should probably knock that plug out and measure at least that back journal. See if I can do it with this PVC pipe here so I don't scratch anything. Is it in there? Yeah. Okay, let's see if I can get you in here. So you can see obviously where it's writing. And just, you know, from a hillbilly checking here, there's no noticeable ridge. I'll measure it more later, but I think we're gonna be okay there. No scratches in there or anything. All right, I wanna take a closer look at the oil pump, but before I do, like, you notice how there's no oil on the inside passages. I was kind of making a big deal out of it earlier, but I think what happened is it just lost its prime when it was being shipped. It was kind of on that pallet weird. This engine has been sitting for a while, so I think that's all that's going on there. This actually looks a lot better than I thought it would be. So no real scratches in here. It's a little bit worn, but it's not scratched up. I think I'm probably just gonna get a new oil pump though, just to be on the safe side. Like this back side's pretty scored up. All right, well, I would expect the intake valves to be kind of messed up if they had been sucking in enough dirt to do this much wear. So let's test to see if they leak. I'm just gonna use brake clean here, see if it drips through. That's gonna be the worst one, that's 4, right? That one leaked through already, that's 3. How about exhaust? Well, oh yeah, this exhaust is bad. What do you know, I do have one of these. So that was this one, right? It's been a while since I've used this thing. There we go. Nothing too exciting on here. There's like a tiny little ding. Where is it? Like right there by my thumb, there's a tiny little ding, but that's about it. I mean, it definitely needs a valve job. All right, guys, last thing I want to check here just to confirm. It's looking more and more like it's an air filtration issue, obviously. I'm sure a lot of you already watching at home are yelling at the TV that it is. Don't worry, I'm right there with you. But I just want to check in here. I mean, obviously I cut it open. I'm not really looking for metal shavings. I'm looking for dirt. And that will tell me I should have done this initially. Yeah. That was probably from cutting it. Yeah, I can just feel dirt in here. Yeah, I collected some of the grime in there so we can get a closer look. It's a little bit of rock right there. This looks like a piece of wood. Yeah, that's just, looks like really fine gravel or something. It's like literally just rocks. Okay, well, there you go. All right, well, I guess we're looking at a full rebuild on this engine. Not really what I was expecting with this video, but it is what it is. I mean, it could have been a lot worse. Thankfully, the place I bought it from is going to make good on it and, you know, reimburse me. I've never actually diagnosed an engine that's been, I guess it's called dusted, like this before, where there's just some kind of filtration issue and it just completely wipes out the cylinders like that. I got thrown off by a few things, like all the junk in the water jacket. Like I thought maybe it was just a really old engine, but I think it just had been sitting for a very long time, and that's why it had just all corroded up like that. I might not even be right. That's just my amateur opinion, is that that's what happened to this engine. Fortunately, it's fixable. It's a lot more fixable than the Perkins. So that is still the direction we're going to take. I'm still going to measure everything and, you know, make sure I don't need to replace anything before I make my order here. Right now, I'll tell you, I'm probably going to need some undersized bearings for the crank. The crank's going to have to be ground and polished, and then it's going to need a head job. I always have my machine shop do that because they don't really charge that much and they do a really good job. And what else do we need? Just a normal rebuild kit. Oh, oh right. We're going to have these cylinders bored and sleeved, obviously. I've never actually done that on an engine before, so this will be a new experience for me to figure out what that's about. I mean, my machine shop's going to do that. There are sleeving kits that come with the overhaul kit, so that's not a big deal. It's probably pretty common on these. Besides that, I like this engine a lot more than the Perkins. It's pretty simple. Comes apart really easy, way easier than the Perkins did. Really my only complaint is just there's that one front cam bearing and that's it. Anyway, if you disagree with my assessment, please let me know down in the comments. I'm always eager to hear other people's opinions, especially since I barely know what I'm doing. The one thing that doesn't quite make sense is what happened with this bearing and that one journal on the crank. That's a weird one. I've never seen a mark like that before. But besides that, all the other evidence points to the engine being dusted, in my opinion. Now, I know I'm speaking to the choir here. Most of you already know this, but this is a really good example of why you should never spend real money on an engine that you haven't actually seen. You should always treat every engine as a core until you've actually had a chance to look at it. In this case, as soon as I was spinning it over, I could tell something was wrong with it. Now for me, it's really not that big of a deal. I mean, going in, I knew this could happen, something like this. This is kind of bad luck, but it does happen, probably a lot more than you would think. Monetarily, I'm going to get reimbursed from the shop, so that's not a problem. You know, content-wise for the channel, this is good meat and potatoes content. And it's good for me. It's a good investment in myself, learning a new engine and rebuilding it, something I enjoy doing anyway. So everyone's a winner in this case. And then also, the skid steer gets a refreshed engine, which will be nice. Anyway, that's pretty much going to do it for the Yanmar for this video, but let's go look at the Perkins. I know a lot of people are asking why I wasn't going to repair that block, so let's go check it out. Okay, we got the Perkins stuff over here. Let me just quickly mention that I am not an expert machinist by any means. And for this, I actually went and found a couple machine shops that still do this kind of work. It was actually quite hard to find shops that do line boring anymore. It seems like a lot of them have closed down in the last 5 or 10 years. Anyway, I did find a couple that do still do it, and I got their opinion. So here, let's look at the front surface here. And you can see that the bearing has spun in there, and it has chewed it up pretty badly. The cap is similar in how it looks. So obviously you can't just throw a new bearing in, it would just spin immediately. So normally in this situation what you would do is have a line board, which can mean a few different things, but typically it's when you remove material off the cap, and then that makes the bore diameter smaller, and then you go and you run a giant bore through, keep everything in line and bore it out to the original diameter so your bearings will fit in. Unfortunately, that won't work on this engine because typically when you do that, it moves the center line of the crank that way. And this is a geared timing setup, so that would throw the gear mesh completely off and it just wouldn't work. So other options. I kind of asked about this one. Can you re-weld material in all the way through? Both shops said no. It throws the alignment of everything out and just makes the whole block warp and twist. So bad idea. You could also overbore it and then put oversized bearings in to pick up, the slack of whatever you bored out. That is an option. I looked through catalogs though, unfortunately, and I could not find anything even close to do that. So you'd have to get like custom bearings made, which would obviously be really expensive. So both shops pretty much told me the same fix. And that would be overboring everything and then machining ideally a cast iron sleeve, two-piece sleeve for the top and bottom to fit in, to pick up that slack, and then boring that back out so you can use the stock bearings. That is a technique that works. Unfortunately, they quoted me right around $2,000 just for that. So that's $2,000 just to fix the block. That doesn't include any of the other machining. Then we have the crank. By the way, crank grinding seems to be another one of those things where it's just kind of going away. A lot of the shops I contacted don't grind cranks, they only polish them. And the ones that do grind it, they all send it to the same place out in Clackamas. One of the machine shop guys I talked to actually has 2 crank grinding machines, but he doesn't have anyone to run them, so he sends them out to the same place too. So anyway, how much does that cost? I don't know, I'm gonna guess 500 bucks. I didn't actually get a quote for that. So we have 2,000 plus 500. The overhaul kit, I think, was $1,200. What other machining is there? I mean, there's honing the cylinders out. I could probably do that. I could probably do the head job. So just adding up all the machine work and parts that we need, we're looking at, I don't know, I would just a rough guess, probably about $4 grand in parts and labor and machining. So what about a replacement block? Or a running, a non-running or a running core? I looked and looked, I couldn't find anything. A guy from CAT looked, he couldn't find anything, or he at least never got back to me. The only block I was able to find was on eBay, and I'll throw some pictures up. That block they were selling for $4,000, and the bearings had clearly spun on that block if you looked at the pictures. I'll see if I can find them. So all of this money and time to fix this engine is spent, and it's really only fixing the result of the problem, right? The actual problem is this oil pump. It's a very poor design. It's a very common mode of failure for this engine, I've since found out, and it's kind of why you can't find these blocks anymore. So I'd also have to spend money to find a shop to make a new case out of billet. I think that's really the only fix. I did actually talk to a shop about that, and they thought it would be possible, but we're talking custom machining at that point to fix this, which is going to add some more cost. So taking all that into account, this is just my opinion, but I don't think it's worth it to rebuild this engine. Now, if you were adamant about having the original engine back in the machine, I mean, that's up to you. I just don't think it's worth it. I think it's actually a detriment to the machine and resale value. Okay, with that out of the way, let me explain why I picked this engine, why I think it's going to be a good fit. So this is the original flywheel housing and flywheel off of the Perkins, and this is the pump mounting coupler. So there's a gear on the pump that goes into here, and this goes on the flywheel. You can see these holes. And then the pump itself bolts to this plate right here. And this plate, you can see this ridge goes into the flywheel housing. Now this all might seem a little bit tricky, but this is all SAE standardized sizes. So I believe this is an SAE 4 or 5 flywheel housing. The lower the number, the bigger the flywheel housing. This bolt pattern is all standardized. Similarly on the flywheel, it's the same deal. These bolt holes right here, the outside, inside, are SAE standardized sizes. And basically what I found at looking at a bunch of engines, it's just based on the displacement of the engine. 2.5 up to about 3.5 liter uses this size flywheel and flywheel housing. And I can kind of show you some other engines here as an example. 16 inches exactly across it. So this here is the hydraulic pump, which mounts up to my excavator, which is a 3.8, 3.9 liter. It also uses an SAE bell housing. And this one it's kind of hard to tell with the coupling, right around 18 across. And I'll post the chart up so you can see, but it's the next size up. So that's an important thing to know, is too big of displacement and it won't fit, which is why I did not go with a Cummins 4B. Okay, here is a Rolls-Royce B40 engine that I've shown on the channel before. This was made in 1950, but it has the same exact bolt pattern. It's a 2.8 liter, so similar displacement. And we got a 16-inch bell housing size, same exact bolt pattern. And if you look at the flywheel, it even has the correct SAE bolt pattern for the pump coupler. It would fit right in here. So you could technically swap this engine into the skid steer. It wouldn't fit, but I mean, at least all this stuff would fit. And I did mention this earlier in the video, but this is the flywheel that came on the engine. And this wouldn't really fit. I mean, you could maybe machine it, but it's not worth it. I might as well just sell this one if I can. And then I already purchased this one, which is already drilled for the coupling. So we're all good there. That should bolt right up. One other thing to mention is just the engine mounting, which is going to be custom fabrication. So on the original flywheel housing, the mounting bolts are up here. And then on the new one, they're down below. So I'm going to have to build a bracket, but there should be plenty of room to do that. Also on the original Perkins, the engine mounted up front to the frame of the machine. Obviously not an option here, so I'm going to have to do a bracket from here. We'll find a way to kind of wrap it around. There should be plenty of room because this is a shorter shorter block. So that's pretty much it though for the custom work, which is just engine mounting plates. Pretty simple. So hopefully it's clear that hooking the pump up is actually the easiest part of this. Then it comes down to engine dimensions and everything else. So in the case of this engine, it's actually shorter by like half of an inch or an inch than the original Perkins engine, despite being a 3.3 liter. The bore diameter is the same as the Perkins, it's just got a longer stroke, but it's not actually taller or anything. It's pretty much the same height, it's just a little bit shorter, so there shouldn't be any problem there. So for me personally, when I'm doing something like this, I like it to be as stock as possible in how it looks and functions. So an important factor for me was having the intake and the exhaust on the correct side so I could reuse the old exhaust and intake in the machine. So that eliminates the Isuzu 3 liter. I think it's the 4JG1 engine. A lot of people were suggesting this to me because someone had done a swap on YouTube or showed a picture of it. So on that engine, besides the intake and exhaust being on the wrong side, it also has a much deeper oil pan, so it would have to be modified. The oil pan on this one is exactly the same. The only modification I need to do to it is drilling a bulkhead fitting in the side. So that's the Isuzu engine. There is a newer version of the Perkins engine, but it was pretty expensive, all the ones I found, and I kind of have a bad taste in my mouth after the first Perkins. So that just leaves this engine and the Kubota to choose from. The Kubota and this one are pretty similar in their size and their setup, but just looking around at prices, either the 4TN98 or the 98, this is the 98 version, they're just so much more common and cheaper than the Kubota. So it was like, at that point, it's basically a no-brainer to go with this one. Now, all that being said, I have not actually fitted this in the machine yet. I've taken a lot of measurements and it looks like it should fit no problem, but take what I'm saying with a grain of salt because I haven't actually done it yet. So hopefully all that talking and explanation made some kind of sense. But if you made it this far into the video, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. I think next one on the skid steer, we're going to have this thing completely repaired and rebuilt on the run stand and running. And then after that, the next video after that, we'll hopefully have it swapped. And maybe that's a little bit optimistic. I guess we'll find out. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.